Absolutely wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much for joining me, all of you lovely friends and audience and listeners, week after week. It's such joy and such a privilege to be here. So thank you very much for joining me. I'm your host, Zsuzsanna Hörcsög, and I'm coming to you live from the UK, from the Midlands, where it is getting Octoberish and going into Novemberish. And I'll tell you what, while I'm starting with the calendar again, yes, time is changing. The seasons are changing. Oh my goodness me, light is changing. And that's why for today's episode in this show, Zsuzsanna Medium, that's our show here, I have invited Angela Barker. If you remember, she was here once or twice a few months ago when she was talking about candles and all the wonderful things. So she's going to do a little recap on those, as well as talking about what is happening with the seasons changing. So let's welcome Angela Barker from phoenixflames.co.uk. So Angela, how are you? So important to talk about all the wonderful things, what you have in your toolkit, what you are really passionate about. And one thing is the seasons. So yes, it is coming up to Halloween. It is coming up to All Saints Day and All Saints Night. So let's get into the middle of the seasons talk. Where shall we start? Over to you.
So let's start with Samhain, because that's where we're coming up to. People do know it's All Hallows Eve and, Halloween. But for me, one of our 8 Sabbats of the year. It's the new year for us, basically. It's the end of the year. The start of the cycle begins as of October the 31st. So it's the last festival of the last harvest festival of the year. It's the one where back in olden days they would have gathered the final bits of the harvest. They would have started planning what animals to slaughter to put by for the winter. They would have started gathering in the final nuts and the apples and the pumpkins and the squashes and all that sort of stuff that gets picked around this time of year. So that's what they would have been doing in olden days. And obviously it's also the time of the year when the veil is getting its thinnest. You connect to spirits a lot more easier at this time of year.
It's absolutely beautiful and fascinating, in that sense that yes, we are finishing one season, and then it's not just I'm finishing, but immediately I'm stepping into the next one. And while I'm stepping into the next one, at the same time, I'm celebrating those ones who have passed over in spirit, but they want to be part of that joy, what we are experiencing in our lives. So when you say that the October the 31st and November moving into November, what else, in what other ways would pagans celebrate the end of harvest and moving into the season?
So there's always, whenever any Sabbath comes along, there's always lots of celebrations. There's always a feast of some sort of food. So at this time of the year, for example, I'm going with my coven to Somerset. We've hired a couple of little log cabins, and we're going to prepare a whole meal for the day. So we're going to do pumpkin carving, but we're going to use the flesh of the pumpkin to make not only snacks at lunchtime, but pumpkin soup for the starters of the evening meal. We're doing a very vegetarian meal this year because I've got a lot of vegetarians in my coven. So we're going to have nut roast, which is another thing that gets harvested this time of year. So we're going to have a nut roast. We're going to eat potatoes. We're going to have roast potatoes. We're going to have sweet corn and peas. And then for dessert, we're going to do a baked apple. So we'll get the apple and the raisins and the currants, and it does get rather laced with brandy as well. So it's not all about the food. We're also drinking cider and apple juice as a way to honour that sort of part of the season. We also set up a space for our dead and for our ancestors. And within that space, we set up an altar, and we set up an altar for them, and we put things on there that remind them of us. We put photos out there. They also get a plate of food at that time of the year. So you actually plate up everything you eat. You plate up a small plate for them and put it in their spot. And then we use that food and we take it out into the countryside or out into the garden, whatever, and we give it back to the earth. So it's actually like we're honouring the earth at the same time. We do tend to have a good night, lots of nights of divination and talking and laughing and just general having fun with our dead and with the ancestors. We do connect into the spirits. We do use tarot on that day. We do use different forms of divination to connect into our ancestors and into our dead. And we do talk to them direct, and we do get it's a really lovely time of the year for us. And obviously there's got to be fire involved, because fire is all about cleansing and transformation and starting anew. So we really do cleanse ourselves in fire. You know, some people like to fire walk on that night. We'll have a fire outside. We've already organised for a fire pit to be brought to one of the cabins. So there's going to be a fire outside that we can go and sit round and talk and have more fun, but we'll literally be putting our arms through the fire and just cleansing ourselves through the fire. And if we can jump over the fire, we will.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. You know what I'm hearing in your conversation is that very much close to nature and celebrating what nature has provided throughout the year, and that is just the end of the season, and at the same time linking with the higher energies, you know, the those ones who passed over, their spirits. Now, when you say celebrating and inviting spirits, those ones who passed over to celebrate with you, do people do we need to be, I mean, not me, because I'm tuned in, but generally speaking, you know, people might say that maybe I need to be a little bit cautious about inviting those who passed over, you know. So what is your view on that, inviting those ones who passed over or being part of our life?
Well, I kind of think you're only inviting them for a night, and you can put a time limit on them. You know, you can say, because we light candles for them as well. So the people we invite in, we will light a candle for, and that candle needs to burn all the way down. So I wouldn't advise getting one of our Phoenix Flames candles for that, which is an 80-hour burn, because it means you have to sit with the candle for the whole 80 hours. Whereas if you get something like a spow candle or something that's going to last 3 or 4 hours, like a normal dinner candle or something, you know, you can literally sit there, and for the whole dinner and the whole evening, they can come in, they can join you for that time. And to be fair, you're not going to invite in somebody that you didn't know in this life. You're going to invite in your ancestors and the people that have passed that you loved and cared about. So I don't see anything wrong with that. And you're putting a time limit on them anyway.
Yeah, yes. I mean, this is what I was thinking about, because then, of course, those who belong to us, that is very much of a family and community celebration. So those ones, I'm just thinking of those people who might have a little concern about, you know, it's all okay to celebrate the firework and Halloween and all that, but I want to be a little bit cautious with all my ancestors being around. But I feel that we live at a time where we really need to draw into all the goodness they have to offer, and that's why they are very much around us. Of course, they are around us all the year around, but then having that point in time when we are transitioning from one season to the next, and they want to be really close and they want to celebrate with us. So when you say that all the conversations with them and all the spells, so can you say more about the spells, please?
Okay, so some of the spells we do in general with paganism, you know, it's all about working with the earth. It's about working with the elements, you know, the earth, fire, water and air. And we also work with the spirit on certain levels, you know, so we're always kind of working with that spirit and that ancestral magic anyway. And when you do tune into your ancestral magic, there is a line of energy there that you're just tuning into. It doesn't necessarily mean you're tuning into anything bad, because as we know, Zsuzsanna, and as you know, when souls pass over through the veils, you know, they go through those pains and those aches and everything they needed to learn. They go through that to get to the other side. So they know what they've done wrong in this life. They know how they've been bad. And they're not going to be bad on the other side. Once they've passed through that, there's no way that they could actually be a bad spirit on the other side, because they've already had that goodness put into them again. They become a pure light.
Yes, yes, yes. I tell you what, it's good you say the light, because my next question is about light. You know, is there a certain way how we need to light a candle or create our fire when we are in that environment where we want to bring our ancestry closer to us?
Okay, so when we light our candle, we will sit there, we will open a circle up. So we'll use the elements to open the circle up before we start eating. That's part of our ritual. We would then light the candles with the people in mind, and we would be lighting those candles with those people in mind. We'd be inviting those people in as we're lighting the candles. We'd be putting as much energy as we possibly can into those candles and into that ancestral and altar for the spirits, for the dead. We would be putting as much energy as we possibly can. We would then be lighting the candle. And let's be fair, we choose those candles for our dead. We choose those candles for our ancestors. And, you know, for example, my nan's colour was always yellow. She loved yellow flowers because she saw it as friendship and as connection. And that was the way she saw it. So she loved yellow flowers. She always used to say, never get me white lilies, because she's not died yet, because they reminded her of dying. So I would never buy white lilies for my grandmother. I would also always buy yellow, because she loved lilies, but she didn't like the white ones, which is just random. So I would always buy her a yellow candle now.
Yes, yes. So it's like it's really how they were how they are in their real lives, and then we are taking the lead from them. Yeah. So I tell you what, you know, this season is really making me think, because when I was growing up, and it's a different type of energy. But when I was growing up, I remember being taken to the cemeteries of different grandfathers and aunties and all the different families through different days leading up to this time of the year. And I remember lighting many, many, many candles. And I remember the whole cemetery in that sense was really lit up and glowing with light. And then that energy really stayed with me, because it's not just, you know, as a child, you really want to touch the candle, you want to play with the fire, you really want to own it as you are placing it to that portal, you know, where we would understand that, yes, that is the memory, that is the memory for my grandparent, for instance. But I remember that very subtle energy, very, very deep sense when everything was lit up. And then I feel that when we light the candle, there is that, yes, we are here in the physical reality. We can touch, we can feel, we can smell, we can be very close. And then I feel that is a point where all our loved ones can come around us, because they want to feel, they want to smell, they want to touch. So what would you have any experience around that, or
It sounds exactly like we do on Sawain with our group. So say there's going to be 8 of us in around that table, and can you imagine how many spirits and ancestors are going to be surrounding us at that time, and how many candles we're going to have lit at that time? Because we also use the pumpkins with candles in as well. So the energy gets built with that fire and with that air and with that earth and with that water that's happening around you. And the energy's there, you know, and you can't deny it. Having a candle burning is just beautiful, isn't it, anyway? But having the energy of all your ancestors and your spirits there wanting to be with you and wanting to try and give you some advice of how you're going to go ahead in the new year, and doing different things, and sometimes telling you off as well, telling you you've done things wrong that you shouldn't have done, you know, because they're not backwards in coming forwards, our spirits, are they? They're always honest, and they're always straight to the point normally. Mine are, especially.
Yeah. So that is just yes, we are talking about this point in time, but then actually we can invite the audience, if people are out there just maybe thinking about tuning in with their own ancestry, how we can draw upon their help and assistance because they are very honest, very straightforward, and at the same time very delicate when they need to be that way. Now, earlier I remember it just caught my ears when you said that then we are using the tarot cards for divination. So is it that there are other times when you would not be using it, or what is happening around that?
So we use various different forms of divination. Once again, we go back to the pumpkin because we like to use every little bit of the pumpkin. That pumpkin will not go to waste. Even the pumpkins that we've carved afterwards will go out up high for birds and squirrels and things, because if you put them on the ground, hedgehogs don't like them too much. It can actually kill hedgehogs. So we never put them on the ground. We always put them up quite high for birds and squirrels to get hold of. So we use every bit of the pumpkin, including the seeds. So throughout the day, we will dry the seeds that we've taken out the pumpkin. And we would use that for divination. We would use that to ask the seeds a question, and we would chuck those seeds onto the table, and then we would divinate from what turns up in the seeds. It could be anything. It could be something and nothing. We would also use things like bibliomancy, where you get a book, you turn it to any page, and then you literally ask a question, turn it to any page, and then you close your eyes and just scroll your hand over until your hand tells you to stop. Once your hand tells you to stop, you then point where it's told you to stop. You read that sentence and see if it works, if you can work out what the answer is to your question. And sometimes you get some really, really easy answers come through, And we use the tarot in the same way. We could be asking our spirits a question. And, for people that find it a bit difficult to connect to spirits, because some people, their head gets very, very chatty and they can't differentiate between their own voices and their spirit voices as such, because sometimes that happens in people's heads, and they don't know whether they're just wishing for that answer or they actually misguide themselves into believing it's the answer that they're getting. So you can use the tarot cards to actually get the answer that you want from your spirits as well.
Yes. I tell you what, I really, like the idea of the community spirit around this, because it's the family and the community is already together. And then once you have a question, yes, you have your intention and you receive the answer, and then it is witnessed by the community. So moving forward for the next year, you said that now you're finishing the year, that is the end of the year, and moving into the next year, actually, it is beautiful because then the community is creating the individual through divination, or the individual is creating itself in the community. And then it's in that sense that moving forward, it is not an individual experience. Life is not an individual experience, but it has been witnessed by all the others. So in that sense, you would have the support from the fellow community members, when they have witnessed your wish and the answer what you have received. So it's quite interesting, because while I'm saying this, I'm realizing that actually the whole thing is a community, inspirational community, soul, energy, light, all together, because the community who's here in this earth plane right now is there. And then the community of the ones who passed over, they are around. So that feels like a very healing experience and very, very much of an uplifting experience. Now I'm thinking of music. Do you sing songs or dance, or what else is involved?
Well, I know somebody wants me to sing My Heart Will Go On, but I don't think I'm going to do that quite on this show. I've not quite got the voice for it, unfortunately. But
so here we go. Keep going.
My heart will go on. I don't know all the words, so I've given you a little bit, and that's all you're getting. Totally tone deaf. I did make a promise, apparently. I don't remember doing that, but there you go. No, this is a very community experience. It's a very joining together and being in that place together and enjoying each other's company. You just can't stop laughing now, can you, Zsuzsanna?
Yes, it wasn't rehearsed, and nothing was rehearsed here, so that is just cherry on the pumpkin cake. Yeah.
So yes, this is a very community thing, and the fact that you're asking those questions in amongst your community, and then your community seeing those answers. Your community want you to survive. Your friends and your family and your community want you to survive. They want you to push forward in life. They want you to grow and become a better person and become a more intact person. So by hearing those answers of those questions you're asking, and back in the day, it would have been, am I going to have a healthy crop next year? Or can I have a healthy crop next year? You know, and once you get that answer, if that answer comes back with, yes, you are going to have a healthy crop next year, you're going to try your damnedest to make sure you have a healthy crop next year. So that's magic in itself, because you're already putting that intent out that you're going to have a healthy crop next year. You're already putting that intent out, and then you're going to go away and work on it because you know it's going to be there. So you're going to work your socks off to make sure these things happen. That's putting more energy into it and more intent into it. And then you've got your community and your ancestors and your spirits and your friends and your family backing you up behind that, putting more energy into that magical spell. You know, how amazing is that? That you've got all this energy from all these different angles pushing forward to get to your goal.
Yes, it's absolutely beautiful. You know what I'm thinking of, the role of the children. Is there something what children do, or everybody is together as one community, or something special what children can do when they join in?
Well, obviously there's things like apple bobbing and pumpkin carving and arts and crafts. And back in the day, they used to use things to sort of decorate villages and stuff. You know, if they had time, they used to get children to go round putting these pumpkins around with lights in them. And you know, they used to decorate villages around this time to have this final feast together as a community, because let's remember, it started to get to a bit further on and people started hibernating in their own houses. They very rarely came out because of the snow and the ice, and it was dangerous for them to go too far from their home. So you can imagine that this was probably one of the last times that they would see each other for a good 2 or 3 months. You know, they may see each other briefly, but it was probably one of the last times they'd see each other for 2 or 3 months, and all they would see of each other is their family. So this is the last time they're going to kind of get together and have a real feast and a real party. Let's be fair, this is a party, this is a feast, this is a party, this is eating up the stocks that have come from the harvest before as well, all the wheat and the grain and all that sort of stuff, you know, that you've stacked away for winter. It's making sure all that's stored away, it's making sure you've got all that food there, and it's all ready for those winter months, those harsh winter months, because they would have been harsh.
It's absolutely amazing. I'm just thinking when you said that that is the last time how the family gets together, because of the everybody's going within. So not just objectively within, because it gets colder and darker, and when we really need the light, but what is really important for people? What do you think? You know, now we are in 2021. What do you think is the most important thing for people as we move forward to look within? What can we search within? What can we use the time ahead to search for?
Well, I think people really need to start looking at their lives, and I think with everything that we've had with the virus and everything, I think having that, and a lot of people were changing their outlook on life through that time, and it kind of feels like everybody's kind of stepped back again into that mundane 9 to 5 job. However, I have seen a lot of people now starting to start up their own businesses, starting to go for their own power. And maybe it's this time of the year, if you've had that in your head, go for it. Start planning, start doing it, start moving forward.
Yes, I tell you what, it's just so beautiful you are saying this, because that is the energy, what I'm feeling, that yes, we are getting into the darker season, and we need to get prepared and all that, physically and mentally and emotionally. But at the same time, just like the harvest is finished, and then we've got the seed, because the seed is already being put in the soil, farmer. and then we need to do it, and then we are doing it, and then that is the frequency. Because yes, the year finishes, it's going to finish soon, but at the same time we are already seeing and feeling into what is coming next, and then how we need to have that light going on as we are moving forward. So brilliant talk, Angela. I think this is what we had time for today. How can people find you, please?
So I'm on Phoenix Flames, which is FENIX flames.co.uk, or I am on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. You can also find me under Angela Barker Tarot.
Beautiful. Thank you, Angela. Thank you for being here. And I know you are a very, very fine reader, a very fine consultant, and then people can many interesting things on your pages and on your site. So thank you very much for joining me. I have a feeling that you will come back when we get to the other season, when it is coming up. So let's just put it into our diaries. So thank you very much for being here. The rest of the audience, thanks very much for being here. I was your host, Zsuzsanna Hörcsög. This was our show, Zsuzsanna Medium. And you can find me all my different pages, always Zsuzsanna Medium, zsuzannamedium.com. And just tune in to what is within you and what you can, gather that strength as you are moving forward. Light a candle and then just focus that, have that hope, have that beauty within you. So we are sending you lots of love, many blessings, and tune in next week. Thank you very much. Thank you.